Hi, good day to one and all. Join me today as we discuss a very interesting topic on improving psycho, emotional, and spiritual well being. I am Michael G. Burmachuelos, your resource speaker for this topic. I would like to discuss the fundamentals of relationships in relation to the realities that we have just discussed. Because the reality of God, the reality of the self, the reality of others, and the reality of creation are basically relationships. Realities, relationships, R and R. These realities are also relationships. It is very important to ponder on this because sometimes we do not acknowledge that these realities are actually relationships. And relationships are very important to us because our happiness in this life is greatly dependent on the quality of our relationships. So let us ponder on what is the current state of our relationship with God? How close are we to God? What can we say about our relationship? Are we really close with God? Or are we distant from Him? Of equal importance is also to reflect on our own relationship with ourselves. How do we see ourselves? Do we value ourselves? Have we understood that intimacy from God gives us our identity as His children? Are we confident to say that we are God's children? And if we are God's children, are we living like God? Are we doing things in our life in accordance with the will of God? That's how we look at our relationship with ourselves. Is there self-esteem? Is there self-worth? Those are very important questions. Maybe sometimes self-doubt creeps in, insecurities, negative feelings, and all of these are realities. And it also tells us the kind of relationship that we have with ourselves. Sometimes we are mad with ourselves. We are our own best enemy. My best enemy is myself. And also my best friend. When we do good things, we feel good and we say that myself is my best friend. But we also sometimes feel that we hate ourselves for not doing good enough, for not doing good for other people. And thirdly, we have to look at the reality of other people as one of the most important relationships that we need to improve on a daily basis. Because the quality of our relationships with them greatly determines our own happiness, the quality of life that we live in. And most of all, our relationship with creation. We simply cannot live without creation. We have to take care of this planet and all living things within this planet because we only have one home and this planet is our home. There's only one Earth. If we destroy this planet, we are destroying ourselves. Now, talking of relationships, as we go deeper, we have to realize and accept openly that the fundamental principle of human relationship is none other than LOVE, love. As we move forward, we need to understand and qualify what this word means. Love, LOVE. For so many people, love means different things. In dictionary, there's so many meanings about love. That's why we need to be concise and precise on what is this love that I am talking about in this discussion, so as to make sure that we will not end up having misconceptions along the way. So when I talk of God as the basic principle of relationship, I'm talking about love as God and God as love. They're interchangeable. God is love. Love, true love, is God. Therefore, the central principle of a healthy human relationship is God, is love. But what does this mean? In simple terms, what does this mean in our very lives? This means that when we want to have healthy relationships, God must be the central pillar of our every relationship. For without God, without love, there is no healthy human relationship. If you take away God, if you take away love as the central principle of whatever relationship it is, that relationship will be toxic. It will be deadly. It will lead to pain, suffering, destruction, chaos. For a relationship to be healthy, it must have God as the central pillar. Why? Because when we have God as the central pillar of a relationship, then that relationship becomes life-giving. God is the creator of life. Therefore, when we have it, have Him as the central principle of your relationship, then that relationship becomes life-giving. Not just life-giving, it becomes a relationship that is life-sustaining and is growth-oriented for all those who are in that relationship. And for that relationship to endure and to persevere, it needs a constant source of energy, a source of life and joy that is unlimited. Of course, God is infinite. There is no limit to what God can do in our lives. That's why God should be the central principle of our healthy relationships. As human beings, we cannot sustain the energy and life of a relationship by our own power. No matter how skillful, no matter how knowledgeable we are as human beings, we are but finite beings. We have limits. We have limitations. We have weaknesses, frailties. It is when we encounter numerous trials, difficulties, problems, pains, sufferings, and hardships in our relationships, human as we are, without God, chances are we will not withstand them all. Sooner or later, our relationships will fall. That is, if God is not the central pillar of our relationship. These trials and difficulties, problems, pains, sufferings, and hardships, this will be too much for all of us. If God is not present, if we are relying on ourselves, we will eventually capitulate to our human weaknesses and frailties, and that will be the end of our relationship. And it will end in bitterness, despair, and separation. What a bitter end. For this reason, we need God as the central principle of our relationship. God should be at the center of all our relationships. We need God because God has a love that is infinite, and if we make that love that is infinite as the foundation, as the central principle and the ruler of our relationships, then we will have a fulfilling, life-giving, life-sustaining, and persevering relationships. A God-centered relationship is one that is based on God as the central principle. God who is true love. One that is also based on a personal decision and choice. We must decide. We must also have our own will. We must cooperate in the operation of that love. We must also give our commitment to give ourselves for the good of the other and for all who are in that relationship, for that relationship to work. Yes, God is there, but we need also to give our contribution. And our contribution is our choice, our decision, our commitment to give ourselves with God's help for the good of all those who are in the relationship. Allow me to remind everyone that love is not a feeling, for feelings are constantly changing, and it is a subject to external machinations and influences. Maybe that's one of the misconceptions about what love is. Many will say that love is a feeling, love is an emotion, but love is simply not a feeling. It is beyond feelings, it is beyond emotions. Love is a person. Love is God. True love is a decision. The decision to give oneself fully and solely for the good of the other being loved. And if this is true in our relationships, even if trials, difficulties, problems, pains, sufferings, and hardships will come, our relationships will remain standing. When we truly love, even if there are hardships, even if there are trials, we will only love even more. And even if there will be more problems along the way, we will still love even better, even stronger, even deeper. True love brings about the very best version of ourselves every day for the good of those whom we love. True love, therefore, is pointing outwards, not inwards. True love is all about giving and sharing without counting the cost. It is like lighting our inner candle as if we are burning ourselves up for those whom we love. When we love, we allow ourselves to burn, not just in the day, but even in the night. To burn each day and night, to give light, warmth, energy, life to those whom we love, even if it means that we are slowly dying, emptying out ourselves for others. Well, that is the reason why we live. We live to love. For to love is to live. Even if it means sometimes we have to sacrifice for the sake of others. Love, therefore, is selfless, self-giving. And our best example for this is our Lord Jesus Christ, who gave Himself up on the cross as a willing sacrifice for the salvation of humankind. In John chapter 15, verse 13, we read a passage that goes, "There is no greater love than this, that a person would lay down his life for the sake of his friends." That is the kind of love God wants us to exhibit every day. A life that is built solely to love, even to the point of sacrificing our own lives for the sake of all those whom we love. Whenever there is pain, hurt, suffering, let our response be more love. And when there is more pain, more hurt, more suffering, let our response be to love even more. Wow. We simply have to believe it. Love never fails. It will always win. It will always triumph, for true love is God. And with God, nothing is impossible. Allow me to explain a little bit about this presentation on how do we approach a holistic well-being. This kind of approach is called theistic integrative psychology. It's a holistic approach to well-being. As an approach to ensuring that we have a healthy mind, body, and spirit, I propose that as professional teachers, as persons, as husbands, wives, as brothers, sisters, parents, sons and daughters, we adopt this theistic integrative psychology as our life therapy. This is to counter anything that is negatively impacting our life. So, the way we approach this approach that I'm introducing to you, This theistic integrative psychology is an approach that is incorporating belief in God, theism, into life therapy as a therapy for life, for holistic well-being. Of this therapy is the assumption that spirituality and faith are central to the well-being of a person. This is being adopted worldwide by so many guidance counselors, psychologists, doctors, and many other health professionals around the world. They are all accepting, adapting, incorporating this type of therapy in their work with clients. As a person that is trained in guidance and counseling, I have also studied guidance and counseling in the Asian Academy of Marriage and Family in Quezon City. It was way back in 2016, where I got a diploma in marriage counseling. So this is the way where we're taught about doing therapy with people who have dysfunctional relationships. Even in my training as a youth counselor and facilitator for the last 20 years, this has been the approach. Theistic integrative psychology. We put God at the center of everything and allow Him to work His grace and fix whatever that is broken in our lives. This is simply the best way and the best strategy to fix whatever is not doing well in our very lives. May it be in our mind, may it be in our body, or may it be with our spirit. Friends, in theistic integrative psychology, it advocates and builds on a theistic viewpoint in life. Our paradigm should first and foremost be moved by the reality of God in our lives. And we need to acknowledge that the central relationship that we need to improve and to grow in is our very relationship with God. We cannot simply improve and develop any kind of relationship without first improving our relationship with God. It is the basis of everything. It is where everything is founded. It is the central governing principle in our life. A viewpoint where we allow ourselves to be nurtured by a trustworthy, almighty, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-merciful, and just, and ever-loving God who cares for us so deeply and loves us so greatly that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him may not perish but may have life everlasting. We read that in John chapter 3 verse 16. In this ever-changing world, our mind, our body, and spirit is always under attack. Whether we're conscious of it or not, this is the truth. Our well-being is constantly under attack by a culture of waste. A culture of waste. A culture for instant gratifications. If we look around in our lives, there's so many instant. Instant coffee, instant milk, everything is instant. We look for everything that is instant, where the value of patience and hard work is being relegated to the sidelines and to obscurity. We are now also currently witnessing a throwaway culture. A culture where it is cheaper to replace most faulty household goods than to repair them. And even people, it is very easy for people to throw away relationships out of the door without even remorse for simple things that can be still be fixed if they just put in work and patience. We are living in a time where everything is a product, a commodity to be used for one's pleasure and self-enjoyment. We are now living in an age where everything can be ordered online. That is the reality of our lives in the 21st century. We are now living in the Internet of Things and social media technologies. And these things have driven a wedge between our relationships, exposing cracks here and there, gaps so wide, exposing them to the surface as we are more and more physically becoming present, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually absent from our families. We have so many virtual friends, Facebook friends, online media, social media friends, but very, very few close personal friends. We all want to chat, but we don't want to talk in person. We prefer to send it through text and chat than to say it in person. If ever we have complaints, we always want to post it on social media instead of going directly to the person involved. We are becoming too interested in the developments of the lives of other people and less interested on our own, since it is just one click away in our search engines. We can just Google it and we see what happens with the lives of those whom we think we know, but they don't know us. But we think we know them. We know their issues. We know the gossips about them. We know the cracks in their personalities, and yet we seldom see the cracks in our own lives. We seldom look into the image in the mirror and reflect on what needs to be improved every day. We are currently living in a world that is selling a culture of death, where the life of the unborn are made worthless, as abortions are legalized around the world, covering the murder of innocents as a non-issue in the name of women's right to reproductive health. We are witnessing the value of life plummet as governments adopt numerous laws that are pro-choice instead of pro-life. In this time of the pandemic, as the uncertainties abound and many lives are in danger, so many of us are growing too impatient and complacent to follow the health protocols imposed simply because of very selfish reasons. Instead of sacrificing for the good of all, we tend to only look for ourselves, for our self-interests. Moreover, we are becoming too preoccupied with external things, business dealings, beautification projects, plantitos and plantitas, rather than working on our inner peace and acting on the dictates of our conscience. Dear friends, it is time to reflect. It is time to stop. It is time that we must look and listen to our conscience. We are all better than this. Let us all listen to that small voice deep within us, that voice that calls us to be who we truly are. Let us not forget, we are made in the image of God. We are made by God, for God, and of God. Let us go back to what God wants us to be. Together, let us develop and live in a culture of life. A culture where God is the central principle in our realities and in our relationships. A culture of life is one that is God-centered, life-giving, life-sustaining. It is a culture where there is respect for nature and protection of God's work of creation. In a special way, it also means respect for human life from the first moment of conception until its very end. It also means respect for the basic unit of society, which is the family. Anything that destroys the image of the family is not from God. Everything that destroys the basic identity of the family, composed of a mother and a father, is not life-sustaining. It is pro-choice, but not pro-life. For a healthy well-being, in mind, body, and spirit, I urge everyone, all educators especially, we have a platform of influence that others are only dreaming about. Our platform of influence is so broad, it's so powerful. There's so many listening to us. The learners under our care, they will listen to us because we are teachers, we are educators, and we must advocate the culture of life in our schools, institutions, in our families, in our places of work, wherever we go, whomever we meet. Let us be advocates of God. Let us be advocates of life. Let us be advocates of well-being of the mind, the body, and spirit. Without God as the central principle, there is no such thing as holistic well-being. I hope I have shared something valuable to you in this short presentation, but I pray that with this simple presentation, all of us in our families, in our places of work, wherever we go, whatever we do, we'll always remember this very important thing. Everything we do should be done in love. And because of that love, when we do it, no matter how small that thing is that you do, in school, in the family, in your church, in society, it will be life-giving. It will be life-sustaining. It will make you happy. It will give you fulfillment. it will give you joy. That will give you purpose, meaning. You will be inspiring. Wow. That's what we need as teachers. To be always beaming with joy. Every time we walk into that door in the classroom, we should be persons of inspiration. We simply cannot inspire others if we are not inspired. The moment we walk into that room, as we walk through that door, let us remember, we are walking on the footsteps of the greatest teacher who ever lived, Jesus Christ. He was Rabbi, teacher. Indeed, we have the noblest profession in this planet. Be proud, you are a teacher. You have a noble profession, the noblest of all professions. As we end, I would like us to ponder on the following hypothetical situations. Reflect carefully about each of the situations that I will be giving, and please give the right response and action to improve each situation and the right frame of mind needed to handle such situations. Answer the 3 questions for each situation. So there are 3 questions that you need to answer for each hypothetical situation that is given. The first question is, how would you feel if you are in the situation given? Second, what would be the best approach to change and handle such a situation? What mindset or frame of mind is needed to change the situation for the better? I will be flashing the situations on the screen. I will give you time to ponder on these situations. And please write your answers on your reflection notebook, activity notebook. And please submit it as part of our outputs. I will be giving you at least 10 minutes to ponder on these questions and answer these questions. For our second activity, I would like to introduce to you an activity where we have to read the personal well-being and self-care checklist. In this checklist, there are 6 areas of personal well-being, and under these 6 areas, there are items describing certain things that you need to have to help you have a healthy well-being. So we have spiritual self-care, we have psychological self-care, emotional self-care, physical self-care, and relationship self-care. Aside from that, we also have professional self-care. So just read the instruction. You have to check the box at the side of each item if it is true in your life. If it is not true, then do not check the box. So there are 6 items under each area of well-being, and then you count the number of checks and you put the score at the lower part of the table. And there's also the scores and legends. So what does it mean if you have these numbers of checks in each particular area? So if you got 5 to 6 out of 6, so you have 5 checks or 6 checks, then you have a very healthy well-being in that particular area. If your score is 3 to 4 out of 6, then you are moderately healthy in that particular area. If you only have 1 or 2 out of 6 items in that area, you are somewhat unhealthy. 0 out of 6, you are very unhealthy. So my challenge is, once you are done with this, try to look for ways, look for some improvements on those areas, items that you have not checked. What can you do to improve in these areas? Perhaps you can have a plan. And I would like you to reflect on those things and write it also as part of our output for this session. Thank you for doing the 2 activities. I would like to end with a short statement coming from James A. Fox. He said, "A grateful heart is a beginning of greatness. It is an expression of humility. It is a foundation for the development of such virtues such as prayer, faith, courage, contentment, happiness, love, and well-being." So we always have a grateful heart. Be always grateful. Whatever it is that comes in your way, whatever it is that happens along the way, just be grateful for anything, for everything. Always count your blessings. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have learned something out of this presentation. I pray that you will be blessed and you will all have make a decision to really start improving our well-being by making God the central principle of our life, of our realities, and of our relationships. Thank you so much for being with us. God bless you.